Hi, good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of council for Monday, September 26th. We're going to start with O Canada. We will then do a moment of reflection. Our deputy mayor for the month is Councillor Littleton, who will do a land acknowledgement. Then we'll go into the proceeds of the meeting. So if we can just start with O Canada, if I could ask everybody to stand, please stand.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté le paix, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. We recognize that the lands on which we are gathering are home to many past, present, and future First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. St. Catharines is located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. The Niagara territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. This land acknowledgement is important because it reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people in our community and across Turtle Island. We offer our sincere gratitude and respect to the original and continued stewards of this land. This acknowledgement is our declaration of our collective responsibility to take action for a better world, one that is free from oppression, discrimination, and racism.
Okay, Miigwech, thank you. And we have the adoption of the agenda. I'll go over to the city clerk. We've got some amendments to make.
So the following are amendments to today's agenda. Item 9.1, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Niagara Regional Native Centre will be discussed following item 4. We will then move to item 1, the Mayor's Report, and then continue to the item 6, the consent agenda. Item 7.1, Fireworks Bylaw Revision. The third whereas clause in the bylaw should reference section 446, not section 427. Item 10.1, Councillor Sorrento has advised that he will bring his motion regarding the renaming of Grantham Rail Trail forward at a future meeting. Item 9.4, the new Parkland dedication bylaw, section 6.1AI of the bylaw should state that the bylaw shall be indexed annually on the first day of January, commencing January 1st, 2024 by the CMHC St. Catharines Niagara New Housing Construction Absorbed Unit Prices Database. The published version references the CMHC Housing Starts by Dwelling Type Index. And the following item is additional correspondence, which is in Council Sugar Sink folder, and it's a memo from the Director of Planning regarding the survey results from the public and stakeholder consultation for new Parkland dedication bylaw.
Okay, any other amendments to the agenda tonight? Seeing that I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Sorrento. All in favor? That is carried. And now we have the adoption of the minutes from September 12th and also the budget meeting held on September 19th. Need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Littleton, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Any changes to the minutes? Any errors? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are carried. And now we move into conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest tonight? Councillor Littleton?
I'm going to declare a conflict on the AUD portion of the motion when it comes up.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm not seeing Councillor Porter.
Yes, I have a conflict of interest. I'm a member of the Duluth Yacht Club. I'm just trying, I don't know what number that is.
Okay, so it was kind of choppy in terms of, so I'm just looking to the clerk if you can say it again, just in terms of the, what number it was, Councillor?
Yes, it was, I'm a member of the Duluth Yacht Club. So I've got technical difficulties.
What report are you referring to?
With a couple of screens. I'm referring to, 6.1, it's in the
6.1.
consent agenda.
Okay, thank you,
Sorry.
perfect.
Yeah.
Councillor Dodge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also will be declaring conflict on the AUD when it comes up.
Okay, if you could put that in writing to the clerk so that she has it on file, be greatly appreciated. So with no other further declarations of interest, we are moving right into 9.1, which is the Office of the CAO. Update on the Memorandum of Understanding with the Niagara Region Native Centre and Indigenous Friendship Initiatives. And as we welcome Willow Schwanu, Turtle Clan from the Niagara Regional Native Centre, and she is the Outreach and Fundraising Coordinator. And prior to introducing Willow, I'm just gonna let the public know we're all wearing orange t-shirts here in council. We've got staff and our councillors are wearing it. And I also want to acknowledge our CAO. The entire corporation will be wearing this shirt on the 29th of September. And this is part of the Truth and Reconciliation. And it's an important part of understanding and learning. And the day is the Truth and Reconciliation Day is a day honoring the children who never return home and the survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. And so this shirt was designed by Wanda Griffin, and Wanda is an intergenerational survivor. Her grandmother attended the Mohawk Institute, otherwise known as the Mush Hole, in the residential school in Brantford. And so the city ordered these shirts, and I'm proud to say they were all made in Canada. They are Canadian made by an Indigenous artist, and we're proud to be wearing these. All of our employees will be wearing them on Friday. The proceeds from these shirts go towards the Mohawk Village Memorial Park, which honors children like Wanda's grandmother, who attended the residential school from 1834 to 1970. It was the first and longest operating residential school. City has provided additional resources and opportunities for our staff to increase their awareness and further amplify the voices of our Indigenous allies as we continue on the journey to heal together. And also this week, we are going to be raising the flag for the survivors and for children. And that's another act that we will be taking. We encourage our community to join in this journey to learn more about the truth, foster inclusive relationship, and work towards a reconciliation. And we've developed a strong partnership with the Niagara Region Native Centre. And so Willow's here to offer her reflection on the Memorandum of Understanding that has been signed between the City of St. Catharines and the Niagara Region Native Centre since 2017. And so Willow's going to provide reflections, and then our CAO is going to provide some overview of the work that's been undertaken, and then we'll have discussion of council as well. So, welcome.
Ani, bonjour. I'll start by introducing myself traditionally. So, bonjour, Ani, Jashkak Mesha Kishigo Shawano Indigenous, Mijikiking and Dodum. Kikwanong Ashwadeana, Minwa Dishkazi being in Dow, Lena Lenape, Odawa, Badawadami, Ojibwe, and Anishinaabe. So what I basically just said was that my name is Willow. I am Turtle Clan from Kettle and Stony Point. If you've never heard of the place called Stony Point, you might want to give Google a good old friend and look up what the Ipperwash inquiry means and who Dudley George was. Only because if I do my intro and I don't say that, I feel like I'm not bringing the due diligence that Dudley George had paid that day. About 27 years ago now. So with that being said, I am currently the Powwow Outreach and Fundraising Coordinator at the Niagara Regional Native Center. I've been with the center now for 5 years. This is my 15th role, which I'm very, very excited and honored to be able to do. It gives me a lot of opportunity to get out there in community and really help our kids lead the forefront in the next generations and helping to know this information at a younger age, helping to understand that and making sure that our kids are just up to date with the information as any other community. Because that's work in itself, and that's something that I think because of our friendships that we've made, because of this relationship that we've built, it really has done such incredible numbers within our community. Even looking at the powwow, for example, you go back into 2017, 2016, we were at Montebello. So, you know, prior to that, we were a couple hundred people, which is still great, do not get me wrong. Having it at the Native Center was incredible. We would usually get a couple hundred people, very little to no parking, and it limited things. Now, you know, we take a few years later, we become friends with City of St. Catharines on a greater level. We move to Montebello. We get a couple thousand people. The last one had close to about 5,000 people to 7,500 throughout the day. That was our last in-person powwow in 2019. So I'm very happy and excited to say that we've continued to grow, even over the pandemic, and supporting each other and learning from each other and learning how we can be better allies, not just as Indigenous people, but how we can be reciprocal in that relationship. And I think that that's only going to continue to grow in years to come, and with more solidification of different things within the MOU, like being able to help support traditional people that come down, being able to be that support when you guys need shirts, whatever it may be. We are those friends that you can call, and hopefully vice versa. So with that being said, to say that we have not grown is crazy, considering that we're now at the Meridian Center. So we are now expecting tens of thousands of people, hopefully, and it's going to be one incredible day. But what I think that speaks to the most is I am going to share a personal reflection. I do live in the City of St. Catharines, so I guess I can be slightly biased to the City of St. Catharines, but what I can say is that growth has led to growth in my daughter's pride. And what I mean by that is, growing up, I would never tell my friends I danced. I would never, you know, put on new beadwork and be like, oh my goodness, Mom, go show my friends. No, that never happened. It was within my family, of course, absolutely. But even then I was careful because my mom's side was non-Indigenous. So growing up, I didn't have that sense of pride. I didn't have that pride that when if you got something new, like a new hockey stick, that you'd go to school Monday and tell everybody, you know what, I just shot the best game of my life because of that hockey stick. When really, who knows if it actually was the hockey stick. But what I can say is that my daughter, hearing her inviting her friends, hearing her say to her friends, can you come to the powwow? I'm going to be dancing where the Ice Dogs play. Hearing her talk about being in such a mainstream, huge building and being able to bring powwow to that, it shows us all that we've done something right. We've done something right in the sense that we service 9 different municipalities, so we do work very close with other city councils. And we've done something right as we've inspired, between this relationship, we've inspired other municipalities to take the same steps. They quickly learn that it's not an easy road. It's not a road that just, hey, you want to sign an MOU? Okay, let's meet up and, let's take a picture. It didn't happen like that. It took years of friendship building, getting to know each other, getting to understand each other, getting to understand reluctance, getting to understand that even if we take 4 steps forward, we might then, have some uncoverings like we unfortunately all went through together as a community. But we had uncoverings that took place, and that might have taken us a step back and made us go, okay, wait, maybe we should reconsider some things. And we're going to have those journeys throughout this road, and it's going to continue being sometimes 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, but we'll do them together. And I know that as these few years have definitely alluded to and really proven to our community. And I think if we can continue to grow together, we're going to make mistakes, but as long as we're making them together and learning from them, I think that that's all we can really ask for. And, like the growth in itself, the awareness is something that is truly unmatchable in resense to the impact it's made. And just speaking, like I said, about my own daughter, who, you know, just a little girl, just a dancer, but at the same time to have that pride, I can't begin to tell you how much that means, because it wasn't something it's not a given for Indigenous people to have that pride in their nation. It's not a given that they're even going to be here. Today I was sitting on stage with 5 other survivors of residential school, one of them being Phyllis Webstad, the reason why we're all wearing orange. And as I sat up there, I thought, I don't belong here. And I thought, I don't belong here because I shouldn't be here. What the government did to our people, if it had worked, I wouldn't be here. My grandfather was a residential school survivor. He went to the Mohawk Institute that Mayor Walter just mentioned, as well as my grandmother went to Indian Day School, which is a journey we haven't even begun to explore together. We have 60 Scoop to still talk about. We have many, many, many more things to learn. And that's okay, because I know that we're in this journey together. So to say that I'm excited to see what happens next, I mean, I am. It will be sad to see our friend make his next journey. I mean, we've already recruited him, so it's okay. But even if that doesn't work out, at the same time, I'm excited to see. I know that come in the fall, we're going to continue to grow together with the new city and council to be able to get some more training under your belt, get some more work together, and again, just continue to grow, because you know, if this powwow speaks to anything, like I said to everybody else, we need more hotels and we need a bigger arena now. So, hey, that's a good thing for all of us. Thank you so much, Chimakwech.
Thank you very much, Willow. And before we let you go, because I know you have to head over to the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre for a discussion with Phyllis Webstad.
Yep.
And can you tell us a bit about the powwow, what to expect? And a lot of people are going to be watching here. Tickets, all the things that people are going to be asking.
Absolutely. So it is completely a free event. We want to create as much of a barrier-free environment as we possibly can. So with that being said, it is an entirely free event, so you can attend with you and your family. I do anticipate that so the doors will open around 10, grand entry will be around 11. That is our peak time. So if you come at that time, you'll see a lot, there's tons to see, but it'll also be the busiest getting inside, of course. Following grand entry at 11, after 2 intertribals, we'll also have a honor song to welcome Two-Spirit back into our circle, because of colonization, we've actually created lateral violence within our own communities. And therefore, even with that, we have had homophobia within our communities, which is why this year we have decided to have the Two-Spirit honor song followed by our next powwow in 2023, that we will be dedicating it to celebrating our Two-Spirit and our LGBTQIA+ community as well. So we will have that special, followed by another couple intertribals, and then a huge tribute to Phyllis Webstad. Again, seeing Seas of Orange, I can't describe to you the amount of love that you feel when you see this orange, because there was a time where nobody believed me when I said what happened to my grandpa. There was a time where teachers told me, this is the way it is. So being able to see this arena turn orange is really just our hope, is to create that. And not only that, we can't let London, Ontario show us up, people. Like, let's go. We got to get a lot of orange shirts out there. So again, and you can come throughout the day. So that's one of the biggest things that I can say, is that you don't have to come right at 11. You don't have to come at noon. Right before we came here, I seen the phone ringing at the center, and it was somebody asking, I can't get out there till 4:30. That's great. We have a break from 5 to 6. There'll be stuff that goes on during the break, like a baby pageant, followed by, I believe, a smoke dance demonstration as well, followed by our second grand entry. So you don't just have one opportunity, you have 2 to be able to see the big start of it all. So, and then from there, it'll just be a great day with tons of vendors. There's about, I believe, 80 craft vendors, about 5 to 10 food vendors, and then all the dancers and everything else in between. It truly is a way to come and celebrate. And I'll say it once, I'll say it again. You can buy moccasins from Walmart all you want. They'll last you a year. Come buy them from us. They'll last forever. And then when the leather wears out, you can replace that leather, believe it or not. So guess what? That's an investment. So definitely better to come. Plus, great way to start some early Christmas shopping and supporting some incredible Indigenous artists, for sure.
That is amazing. I love the passion. And October 1st, so the doors open at 10 and it goes throughout the day. And it's one of those opportunities where you can come during your schedule, and everyone can wear orange, and it's a great opportunity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our CAO, who's going to go through a review of the MOU, and then we'll keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know, Will, you have a tight schedule, so I will be brief. But I just to provide council an overview, you can stay or it's up to you. Just to give council a brief overview, the MOU was initiated in 2017. So since that time, staff have been working really close with Niagara Regional Native Center on a variety of initiatives. And we had the opportunity last week to sit down with Willow and Carl to go over some of the specifics of the MOU and celebrate, you know, some of the wins that we've been able to do, and also talk about some of that journey and the difficult conversations that we've been having to have as a community. And all of these are helping us build and grow the MOU and amend it when needed. So within the report, I identify a few things where we've updated some of the language to be more representative. Things have changed over the last 5 years, so we've been able to do that. In addition, we have also started the conversation about the Indigenous advisor position and the notion of how do we incorporate that into the corporation. So there's some really interesting discussions happening with the Niagara Regional Native Center on perhaps using NRCC to help provide that support to us. And thirdly, the big point, you know, there are other Indigenous communities and other Indigenous groups that are representative within St. Catharines, and this is not an exclusive to just the Niagara Regional Native Center. So we're trying to incorporate some language to be fully encompassing of all of the other great community groups that are out there throughout St. Catharines to really build and grow. The report talks about some of the initiatives that we've been having. We did talk about training for our staff, and COVID slowed us down a little bit over the last several years, but we do have a specific initiative that we want to get all of our staff trained in various aspects, from frontline staff right in through to City Hall and our part-time and all of our student employees as well. So it's a comprehensive program that we want to bring forward. It's going to take time, but it's one of those things that we know, having this partnership, we can be able to do that, and it's something that we're committed to as the senior leadership team, and I know the council is as well. So as we start to build and grow and you know, take these journeys together with you know, with the Niagara Regional Native Center and all of the community members, there are issues that we'll have to deal with. There are things we'll have to address. There are conversations that we're going to have that aren't always easy to be had, but we're willing to do so. And I think that's a big step in our own growth as a corporation. And I hope that council can continue to support that. So I didn't want to lead too much more with that because I know you're busy, and I know you know, September 30th is a day that we're going to have hopefully all of our employees wearing red who can. We have, you know, different areas that are orange, sorry. I said that twice today. But we do have certain areas within the municipality that some of the employees will not be able to wear them. But as many as we can, we want to be able to do that to show support. We'll be having a newsletter that went out today to all of our employees, which talks about some of the things that are happening on Friday. We're allowing our employees to, you know, take the time they need to take to learn, and Friday is the day to do so. But it's not just Friday. It's really representative of some of the things that we want all of our employees to be able to do. And then leading into Saturday, we're really excited about the powwow and hope to see as many people come to the Meridian Center, but also to St. Catharines in general to see what is to offer. So really excited to be able to continue this. And this is a report that we'll be bringing back intended to be on an annual basis to council, just to show the progress that we're making.
All right, thank you, Willow. So I hope council's had an opportunity to review the report. I know council's reviewed the report. Are there any questions related to the report? Because this will be the first one that we're going to be approving tonight. And not seeing any questions. Again, I also encourage the public to read this report. You know, there's often times when people say, what does a memorandum mean? what does a strategy mean, and it's the actual concrete work that gets done after we do things like approve a strategy or approve an MOU. And so I'm proud of staff and council, and I want to say that in the utmost sincerity. When you look through and you see the growth of the powwow at Montebello Park, you see the totem pole and how the city worked with the Niagara Region Native Center on the totem pole that was at Richard Pierpoint Park, and the investment that was made to bring that totem pole back into the beauty that it was when it was erected by the city in 1967. And so those kind of actions, as well as the support for the Canada Games and the Golden Moments and economic development and our culture team working with the Niagara Region Native Center to have strong water women, Phil Davis, Young Tribe, Diet and the Love Soldiers, all performing here in downtown St. Catharines, the Bogart Street Playground and the multi-use court, and I want to acknowledge Phil Christie and his team for the work. There's a beautiful mural that's installed there. There's Indigenous planting that's taking place. Interpretive panels will be installed to describe the mural. The work that the Malcolmson Echo Park, the Friends of the Malcolmson Echo Park, are doing with the Niagara Region Native Center to plant Indigenous material in the park. And I know Councillor Phillips and Councillor Dodge being involved in that one. Solidarity Day in June 21st, 2022, a first full day of programming delivered with the Niagara Region Native Center acknowledging Indigenous Persons Day. The virtual lectures at the museum, the training that the museum has given its staff through the Niagara Region Native Center, the Let It Glow event in 2022, again downtown, and incorporating Indigenous activities into the Let It Glow event. All of the arts and culture events that have taken place that wrap around the truth and reconciliation, the stories that are being told, the building of bridges, a two-wheel Rompom belt, metal sculpture that's now at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre outside as part of Celebration of Nations, the support of Celebration of Nations over the past 6 years. Like these are a lot of areas where this memorandum of understanding was the starting point. And so I want to acknowledge the leadership of the Niagara Region Native Center. I want to acknowledge the former CAO, Shelley Chemnitz, our CAO, Dave Oakes, and our council. And I say council because it was your direction that helped make the MOU a reality. And then to the senior staff for making sure that it just didn't sit somewhere on a corner of someone's desk, that there was a constant feedback loop back to the MOU and saying, how can we do more? And so I hope that if there's a lasting legacy of this council, one of the cornerstones will be this MOU. So to the returning councillors, please be the champions for this MOU in the next term of council, because, and I've said this story many times before, when we went to sign the MOU, Shelley and I were at the Niagara Region Native Center. Chris Schwanu, who was the executive director at the time, he went to sign it, and before he signed it, he looked up and he goes, you know, these documents don't mean much to Indigenous peoples, right? And it was that first where you went, well, all those treaties that were signed that really didn't, they hurt the Indigenous people. So it was important for me to make sure that MOU wasn't just a signature on a page that really didn't mean anything. And I think what staff have done is working with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, they made it mean something, and that's what means the most to me. They talk in Indigenous leaders talk in 7 generations forward. I hope what this MOU has done is given us the courage to look 7 generations forward, to better understand and to better walk on that path of truth and reconciliation. So thank you very much. I'd like a mover and a seconder for this motion. Councillor Littleton, seconded by Councillor Phillips. And let's have a recorded vote on this one.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
And Mayor Sensik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, and so as we had pointed, we're all wearing the orange shirt, and it was for Orange Shirt Day, September 30th. And again, the date was chosen because it's the time of year when children were taken from their homes to residential schools, and because it's an opportunity to set the stage for anti-racism and anti-bullying policies for the year to come. Phyllis Webstad will be at the powwow on Saturday. It'll be the first time the Indigenous community here in Niagara will be able to honor Phyllis. So the powwow is significant for many, many different reasons. This will be one of the most important. She is the individual who created the orange shirt to become a symbol for recognizing and honoring those who survived residential schools. So she will be in attendance. She is here all this week, and what I'm asking the people of our community is, when people say, what can I do with Truth and Reconciliation? As an individual, what can I do? Come to the powwow. Come to the powwow. Come to the powwow on October 1st at the Meridian Center. That's the way that we can, individuals can show their support and understanding of what Truth and Reconciliation really looks like. Okay. So I just got a brief mayor's report, and then we'll get into the remainder of the agenda. I just want to start with offering condolences. And on behalf of the City of St. Catharines and Council, I'd like to extend our condolences to the family of the late Gordon Donald, a member of the St. Catharines Team STC and the Municipal Works Department. Those who knew him as Gordo, and he served for the City of St. Catharines for 36 years. 36 years, and he is remembered for his hard work and the pride he brought to his job each and every day. Flags were flown at half-mast in honor of Gord earlier this month, and I know our senior team also attended the funeral for Gord to offer respects for his service and to his family. I also want to acknowledge the passing of Keith Simmons, who died in a tragic cycling accident on Saturday. Keith is well known throughout Niagara for his contributions to the tourism, as his role as general manager of the Great Wolf Lodge for the past 17 years. He was also passionate about the environment, serving on the board of the Niagara Peninsula Aspiring Geopark. Keith died doing what he loved, cycling. He was passionate about giving back, and he had just recently completed an 850-kilometer ride from Toronto to New York City, raising more than $700,000 himself. And it was all for childhood cancer. His leadership and tireless philanthropy will be sorely missed across Niagara. And so to his family, his wife and his sons, and to all of his friends, we offer our condolences on behalf of our community. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge those in Atlantic Canada who've been impacted by the powerful storm Fiona over the weekend. I know many St. Catharines residents have many close ties to those on the East Coast, including one of our councillors here today, Councillor Porter, whose family is from Cape Breton. The cleanup has already begun, but as we've seen through the reports that have come in, the recovery is going to be long and it's going to be difficult. And there's a significant amount of damage that has been done to all the maritime provinces. And so there's a request from Red Cross, Canadian Red Cross. So we're encouraging people to support any ways that you can through Red Cross or any other organization that's providing relief efforts to the Maritimes. And again, it shows the power of Mother Nature, and it also shows the shifting of climate change and what that can look like on maritime communities. With that, I also want to say congratulations and thank you to the organizers and volunteers who made the return of the Grape and Wine Festival a major success. Saturday's Grand Parade was an outstanding experience, and I would say I was honored to walk with Councillor Porter and Councillor Littleton, both of whom joined me because they're not running in the next this upcoming election. So they joined me for an opportunity to walk with our many different floats and individuals. Doug Hamilton was the parade marshal. Canada Games were there for the first time. There was an Indigenous dance group that was included in the parade. I want to thank Councillor Phillips as a board member of the Grape and Wine Festival. The last 2 weekends have been an outstanding grape and wine experience, and there was a considerable buzz in our community over the last 2 weeks, something that we haven't seen for the last number of years. And also special congratulations to Deputy Chief Trevor Parker, who won this year's Mayor Grape Stomp. So I know Chief Upper, who mysteriously wasn't available, because I don't know if he wanted to not participate, but we were in good hands with Trevor, and he did an outstanding job. So Chief, you've got a grape stomper there amongst your crew, so make sure you look after him. As well, I also want to say congratulations to St. John's Ukrainian Catholic Church that celebrated their 40th anniversary. Councillor Williamson and Councillor Garcia joined me last night, as well as Chair Bradley, for a wonderful, wonderful dinner to acknowledge the support, as well as a longtime supporter of the St. John Ukrainian Church and the Ukrainian community. Councillor Sorrento was also in attendance. And the church has done an outstanding job mobilizing support for the Ukrainians since the invasion by the Russians earlier this year. And so I just want to say thank you to the church for all that they do in our community. And for, I think, the Thanksgiving food fair is coming up. Councillor Sorrento, you'll tell me the date on that. And Father Anton is making cabbage rolls, pierogies, and, oh, no, what's the other one? You'll find it. You'll find it. Don't worry. And just interrupt me at the end. Also, congratulations to Ian Lord, a member of Team STC. Ian Lord, he won the Man Cup as part of the Peterborough Lakers earlier this month. Ian is a horticultural supervisor for the Municipal Works team here at the City of St. Catharines, an outstanding lacrosse player who has won a National Lacrosse League Champions Cup, a Minto Cup, a President's Cup, and now a 6-time winner of the Man Cup. An outstanding player who also joined a number of St. Catharines players on the team: Thomas Whitty, Corey Small, Doug Buchan, Alan Pace, and Matt Vick. That's one heck of a team they had up in Peterborough. Also, congratulations to Elisa Morabito of St. Catharines, who once again represented Team Canada in the 10-pin bowling at the Pan Am Bowling Master Championship in Dominican Republic, winning 2 golds, a silver, and 2 bronze medals. That is quite the haul. St. Catharines will also be represented on the ladies team heading to Peru in 2022 for the bowling women's championship next month. Sarah Clausen and Miranda Panis wearing the maple leaf in competition. Congrats to Brock University, who won 6-2. They won the Steel Blades game at the Meridian Center. 4,000 students were cheering on the Badgers to victory. As well as this Thursday is the opener for the Ice Dogs as they begin a new chapter in team history against the Mississauga Steelheads. I think that game's a sold-out game, and the puck drops at 7 p.m. at the Meridian Center. And good luck to Darren DeDobler and his team, the new owner, and looking forward to an outstanding season for the Ice Dogs. Culture Days this weekend is marked with the start of Culture Days. It's a month-long of activities for cultural programming across our community. Last year, we were recognized number one in Canada for delivering the most arts and culture experiences in the 2nd year in a row. So I just want to say a special thank you to our St. Catharines culture staff for all they're doing to highlight culture in our community. As well as we have a tree giveaway on October 22nd. And again, this is for all residents interested in picking up a free tree, must pre-order online. Registration will open October 10th. Limited quantities. This species this year are black cherry, sassafras, tulip, and balsam fir. So you could visit the city's website for more information. Did I say that right, Director Christie? Sassafras. Sassafras. Is that correct? Sure. I hope so. And then finally, the city will celebrate the artistic talents of our vibrant arts community at the Older Adults Senior Center, Older Adult Center Art and Show Sale. That's on October 1st, Saturday, 10 to 3 p.m., coinciding with National Seniors Day here in our community. This is a free event. However, attendees are encouraged to bring non-perishable food donations to community care. So with that, a lot of activities, a lot of events, and it was a great weekend, great couple of weeks here in St. Catharines. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I believe we're going to the consent agenda, to the city clerk. Ms. Sullivan?
No one's pulled any items from the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda includes 6.1, Planning and Building Services, demolition of a non-contributing building in the Port Susie Commercial Core Heritage Conservation District, 1 Lakeport Road. Item 6.2, Planning and Building Services, addition of a new non-parking AMPS violation for the city's waste bylaw. Planning and Building Services, city's graffiti program is item 6.3. Item 6.4, Legal and Clerk Services, Council Correspondence. Item 6.5, Legal and Clerk Services, changes to the November 2022 Council Budget Meeting Schedule.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder of the consent agenda? Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Phillips. Councillor Kushner, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I had one question with respect to item 6.2, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is waste defined to be?
Okay, what is the definition of waste as it pertains to this bylaw? Who wants to take a, Director Kitse?
Through the mayor to the councillor, if you can just indulge me 30 seconds to bring up the waste bylaw, I can read it.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for not bringing the question up earlier.
No, we're just getting into it right now. It's fine, Councillor. We are experiencing some buffering on our online piece, so this may allow us to catch up a bit. Manager of Programs and Culture Services, Eric Lamoth is nodding. He's an IT specialist, so he figures if there's no one speaking, the buffering works, we catch up.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor, waste bylaw 2020-106 actually has multiple definitions for waste, but waste, just the definition of waste means domestic waste and industrial and commercial waste, but there are other definitions for wood waste and hazardous waste, among others.
So that would include garbage?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and when Matt Harris and I wrote campaigning in the student housing section, we noticed a lot of limbs that are left on the ground. Would they be considered waste as well?
Through the councillor, sorry, through the mayor to the councillor, I didn't hear that last word. You noticed a lot of
Tree limbs. Tree limbs, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, no, we're just because so it's tree limbs, so it's natural waste.
through the mayor to the councillor, if there are tree limbs that are down around the property, then yes, that would be considered waste.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also apologize for not bringing this up earlier, but can I mention a couple of events on October 1st to your mayor's report?
Okay, what we'll do is we'll wait until, how many events? Because
there are two on October 1st. One is Henley Island Helpers having a big sale, and the other one is the annual Dunlop Senior Center art show, which goes on from 10 to 3, and that's...
Okay, so you just got it in. See, you got it in under the wire. Look at that. That was a very canny move. So we got the Helpers of Henley Island with a bake sale, and then we've got the art show at Dunlop Senior Center. Good job.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well done. Okay, I'll turn it to the clerk to call the question.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento.
A hearty yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes, and Cicada Music Fest is also at Henley Island on October the 1st. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes, and the grand opening of Partridge Parks next week too. There you go.
I don't even know where I am. Councillor Kushner, do you have any events
Yeah.
for us? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Littleton.
Wow, campaigning season, eh? Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yeah.
Mayor Senzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
So the featured bands are Strombella's and Tokyo Police Club for Cicada Fest. So just so everyone's aware. Two great Canadian bands. And we've got a couple, we do have some presenters today. So council chambers in all municipalities in our country represent the seed of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of the collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces, pass our bylaws, and seek opinions into very complex issues ensuring the safe spaces for all of our public discourse. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, and the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It is imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another, question one another, that we do so in a way that never undermines any person's abilities or dignity in our chambers. We respect the right for everyone to have an opinion and remind the audience views of the public do not always reflect those of the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines. So it's, again, very important that we provide that reminder as we see what's happening in a lot of the common spaces and public spaces. I think it's more people need to listen to direction like that, or listen to comments like that, because we got to be more respectful of each other as a society. I'm going to turn it over to the chief. The chief is we're doing a public meeting, and this is notice of consideration of the repeal and replacement of the fireworks bylaw that has been published in accordance with the city's notice bylaw. The meeting will proceed as follows. So there's no members of the public who have written in or who are speaking, so we're not going to go through that. The public meeting will be closed, and the staff will respond to any questions after the public meeting is closed. So public meeting is now open. No one's requested to speak. There is no staff presentation. So I call for a motion to close the public meeting. Councillor McPherson, second by Councillor Sorrento, all in favor of closing the public meeting. Okay, I'll signal that. It's closed. Okay, so you have the report that's in front of you. We don't have a staff presentation. Is there any questions of the chief who didn't do the grape stomp? I don't see any. I just had a question about having little feet, but I'll leave that one alone. So with that, I need a mover to move the staff recommendation. Councillor McPherson, second by Councillor Miller. I got that. And I'll look to the clerk to call a question.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Aye.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
That's carried.
What's the name? Is the name of the Katy Perry song Fireworks? What's that one? Is it called Fireworks? Yeah. All right. So I was just making a connection to Katy Perry and the fact that we just approved a fireworks bylaw that was updated. Well done. Discussion reports. So we have financial management services and observations of the year end for December 31st, 2021. So we're going to have a brief presentation from KPMG. Carlos Alvarez, who is a partner with KPMG, will present the findings. I have a brief PowerPoint. Council has received the audited findings as part of your council package. So we'll receive the presentation and then we'll do the staff recommendation. So if you have any questions of the presenter, once the presentation is over, I'll open the floor. Mr. Alvarez, welcome to St. Catharines City Council.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening. You got about 2 minutes and then we'll open it for questions. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That'd be hilarious.
Very good.
He's got 2 slides. It's great. Over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Sendzik and members of council. Certainly happy to be here to report on the audit for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2021. There are 44 slides that are included in the findings report. I will not be speaking to all 44 slides, but certainly I will be highlighting what I believe to be the matters that would be most relevant and important to bring forward to your attention. On this slide that you can see on screen, just by way of audit highlights, we are substantively complete in terms of the audit process. We are awaiting an update from legal counsel on several of the legal issues that are outstanding. Otherwise, we are complete. In terms of how we executed the audit, happy to report that we stayed consistent with our original audit plan. So certainly we did not have to modify or supplement any audit procedures. In terms of the focus of our external audit, which is listed on the right side of the page, again, we focused in on the areas that require judgment, that involved estimation, such as your post-employment benefit liabilities. One unique item is the accounting around the Canada Summer Games, which I'll mention in a few slides. But I would say it's the same areas of focus as to what we focused in on in 2020. Moving to the next slide, please. Always important to comment on audit misstatements. I can report to you that there were no misstatements as part of our audit, which I would call a clean sheet. Benchmarking this municipal audit with others, it is not uncommon to have half a dozen audit adjustments, but the fact that we have 0, I think, speaks volumes to the preparedness and the quality of the audit package that was provided to us. Certainly we try our hardest to detect misstatements, but again, kudos to management for a clean sheet. Always important for auditors to comment on independence. It is the cornerstone of our profession. I can confirm with all of you that we remained independent throughout the entire audit process. We have not delivered any tax or advisory services in which we acted in the capacity of management. So we were on side with all of the independence rules. Moving on to the next slide. Just as a reminder, on every audit of a set of financial statements in Canada, we as auditors are required to respond to the risk of fraud. We certainly performed procedures on the topic of fraud, which included looking at manual journal entries to make sure that the business rationale for the journal entry made sense with the organization that you operate. I can report to all of you that all of the transactions that we examined as part of the audit were all above board. There was no suspected or no actual fraud that we uncovered. Moving along to the next slide. Just one area in which your management team uses the services of another party. The post-employment benefits is a actuarially determined number on your balance sheet. We as auditors, we review the assumptions that go into how that liability is determined, and we were satisfied that all of the assumptions that went into that estimation were reasonable. We can skip forward about 3 slides. Certainly government grants is a key area as part of the audit. Certainly we look at grant agreements and go down to documentation from various funders. We have no findings to report. Again, everything was complete and accurate in terms of how things were recognized in your financial statements. Moving along to the next slide. Actually, one more slide, please, if you don't. One item to pay attention to, and not necessarily an item for fiscal 2021, but there is a new accounting standard that is on the horizon, and it pertains to what I'm going to call asset retirement obligations. We have included quite a few pages in the appendix that highlight what this change means to you as a municipality. Certainly we will work with your management team on the implementation of this standard. This standard will be implemented in 2024. It sounds like it's really far off, but there is a lot of work to do as it pertains to the adoption of this new standard. So just one thing to highlight as it pertains to the future. Moving along to the next slide. Again, a clean sheet. I would like to add that we did receive the full cooperation from your management team. They were very responsive to all of our audit requests. And at this point, effectively our file is complete and bow-tied. again, with the exception of getting the legal update, which we do expect to receive tomorrow. Moving along to the next slide. Just as a byproduct of the audit process, certainly we document your controls and your processes. The item that you see here on the page is an item that we did comment on in the prior year. We do understand that the city is implementing new systems in the future, which we believe will remedy the issue that is outlined on this page. So again, nothing new. It just provides an update for 2021. In terms of the financial statements that are included in your package, the independent auditor's report that is included is a clean audit report. There are no reservations whatsoever in the auditor's report. I would also like to highlight that management did a great job in taking ownership of these financial statements. We provided, I would say, some commentary and some wording changes, but absolutely your management team certainly fully drafted these financial statements, which again is a good symbol of them taking ownership. We can move over to the next slide. If you were to line up these financial statements with 2020, I can confirm with you that all of the accounting policies that were used to bring these financial statements together were consistent from 2020 to 2021. Also worthy of noting that these financial statements are consolidated, which means that they include the results of several other components, such as the library, St. Catharines Hydro, and other entities. And those other entities are subject to separate financial statement audits. Moving along. Now, I'm not going to go through all 7 appendices that are included. The only one that I would like to speak to would be appendix number 5, just in terms of the risks around cybersecurity. Not a week goes by where I don't hear of an issue or a matter that a organization and a municipality are dealing with. Again, I'm not here to be an alarmist. My only comments would be continue to invest and strengthen how you defend against unauthorized access. Always ensure that you have a response plan that is clear, that is well known within the organization. And I can share with you, some municipalities have gotten to the point where they have a specific external legal counsel, they have a specific communications firm, sort of on speed dial, if and when an occurrence would if it unfortunately were to take place. So maybe moving over to the next slide. And certainly, when it comes to cybersecurity and managing cyber risks, it's not about eliminating the risk. It's all about managing the risk and reducing it to an acceptable level. So certainly, we have cyber professionals within KPMG. If you would like to hear additional insights, certainly we can work through management to provide those. I'm not going to go through, each of these slides specifically. By all means, you can review these separately, but certainly it's one of those top 3 audit committee, board, and committee topics. And certainly it's gaining more attention as time goes by. And maybe just skipping to the last appendix, just on the topic of ESG. ESG from a firm standpoint, it is not a fad, it is not a thing. We firmly believe that ESG, will be embedded into everything that we do. Certainly, we've provided just a few slides that provide some insights. Often we get questions from councillors in terms of, what questions should I be asking? and understanding that many councillors come from very different backgrounds, many of them not from an ESG background. Again, we are here and available to support management, obviously on a as-needed basis, but certainly this is, again, also one of those topics that's gaining traction. I will share with you just one example as to the potential impact on your financial results. Those that set the accounting standards in Canada are currently working on a discussion paper that may involve the recognition of natural resources on your balance sheet. And the simplest example would be trees. So there is talk about recognizing the benefit of the trees and the forests that a municipality has, and potentially recognizing that as an asset on your balance sheet. That is not something that's going to be introduced in 2022 or 2023. It's certainly a little bit farther down, in terms of the time horizon, but that's just an example of where the topic of ESG could impact you from a financial reporting perspective. So in summary, I'm very happy with the quality of the audit. I'm happy with the performance of your management team. And as soon as we get the legal update and we have management sign the management representation letter, I will be prepared to sign the independent auditor's report.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Alvarez. Questions of council of the independent audit. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez, the last thing you mentioned about actually quantifying the value of natural assets is a potentially very positive one when we're dealing with trying to improve our degree of environmental sustainability and deal with climate change mitigation and adaptation. Is there any municipalities or other institutions that you're aware of that have started to include this practice in their auditing process, financial processes?
Through you, the mayor, to councillor. So far, no municipalities in Canada have actually recognized I'll call it a financial asset on their balance sheet. There are some municipalities that are increasing the amount of disclosure around ESG topics. And I believe the City of Toronto has actually embedded a unaudited financial statement note as it pertains to ESG at the end of their 2021 financial statement. So nobody has recognized it yet, but certainly the disclosures are starting to come forward based on what municipalities are reporting.
Well, I'm certainly glad to know that it's on the horizon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. I do know that Director Douglas was, and I believe it came out of the Budget Committee, had asked for ESG to do exactly that, look at what municipalities are doing around disclosure. And I'm hoping at the next term of council that Ms. Douglas will be able to provide that, and hopefully we'll be one of the first municipalities to go down this road. And Ms. Douglas, I don't know if you have anything further to add, but it was just part of a budget discussion that we had. Okay.
Yes,
Douglas?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, we have had some discussion around our investment policy with regards to ESG. And I think this new consideration by the accounting standards body is welcome, as it aligns well with the asset management plan work that we are undergoing.
Thank you, Director Douglas. Okay, any other questions of this group? I don't see any further questions. The only question I'd have, Mr. Alvarez, is where with the direction that council has provided in the past, and this is a provincial change that would have to happen, is for municipalities to be able to debenture on things like trees, the planting of trees. Currently, it would go under operations. It wouldn't go under capital. We're not allowed to capture it as a capital investment, even though trees grow from anywhere to 30 to 50 to 100 years plus. Is there any direction, or do you see a way where there's an alignment between what the committee is working on that you referenced with what the province needs to do to allow municipalities to capture it as a capital asset rather than having it as part of a operations investment year in and year out?
To you, the mayor, the discussions at the Canadian Accounting Standards Board level only in what I would call a discussion paper format. A lot can change between a discussion paper and what ultimately is decided on, just because of the significant amount of input that's needed from various stakeholders, including auditors themselves, as well as the municipalities that are involved. So it is just too early to tell what could be in that final standard, and I think that will dictate the second part of your commentary in terms of whether it aligns with other parts of the organization.
Okay, if any direction can be had, it'd be great to get support from the accounting industry in terms of capturing trees as green infrastructure and being able to potentially debenture on the investment into tree urban canopy to allow for municipalities to accelerate the growth of their urban canopy without having to put the burden on the taxpayer today, just today, in terms of flattening out over a longer term horizon. So if you could take that back as a person involved in the investment and the accounting industry, that'd be great. Okay, a motion to, if I see no further questions, a motion to approve. Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Harris. And this is for the presentation. All in favor, show of hands. That is carried. We do have a staff recommendation that we need to get on the floor. It's for the year end December 31st, 2021. Could I put it on the floor? Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Harris. Any questions to the staff? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate Director Douglas and her staff. A very impressive audit. And as I think I'm speaking for all of council, if I'm not, somebody can object. But it's so nice as a council to know that our financial records are, from what I'm getting from the auditor, perfect. And it takes a lot of stress and pressure off of us having to worry about what's going to come up, if we're going to have a problem. And obviously, in my terms of council, we have not. And again, thanks to Director Douglas for that.
Well said, Councillor. Okay, a motion to approve. Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Phillips. And I'll call the question.
We had Councillor Phillips and Harris as the mover
Oh,
and
sorry
seconder.
about that. Sorry, my apologies.
But positive, everybody likes it. Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, Planning Building Services, Municipal Housing Action Plan 2017 status update. We have Mr. Bruce Bellows, the Senior Project Manager, who will take us through a PowerPoint presentation. Again, another informative and positive look at what the city is doing to address some of the significant housing issues in our community. I'll turn it over to Mr. Bellows. Once he has finished his presentation, we'll take questions from from council, and then we'll look at the motion on the floor. Mr. Bellows, the presentation's all yours.
I hope everybody can see that.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. January 2017. Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
Okay. In January 2017, council directed staff to report on tools and options to encourage affordable housing opportunities in the city. In June of that year, staff came back with recommendations to create a city housing action plan and identified a number of longer-term priority action items to support affordable housing opportunities and which to be included in the housing action plan. Council adopted the recommendations of that report, in which I will refer to in this presentation as the HAP report. The affordable housing initiatives identified in the HAP report are shown on the screen before you. Due to the other staff workload commitments, a comprehensive housing action plan, or HAP, has not yet been formalized. Notwithstanding, many of the initiatives and action items identified in the HAP report and on the screen have been completed or are currently under study. The following provides a status update, and I would like to start with the official plan and zoning bylaw. In the opinion of PBS staff, the city's official plan and zoning bylaw are well situated and suited to support the accommodation of affordable and attainable housing opportunities. Prior to 2012, the city's official plan and zoning bylaws primarily supported a low-density planning framework, typical of suburban type of planning formulated in the 1970s across North America. This resulted in a significant amount of the city's vacant lands to be developed for land and space-expansive detached housing. The housing mix in the city up to 2012 was 60% low-density detached and semi-detached housing, and 20% for each of townhouses and apartments. And this type of scenario in and of itself attracts some practical opportunities to support affordable and attainable housing accommodation. However, in 2012, the city adopted a new official plan, and in 2013, a new zoning bylaw. Both these documents take the existing land use planning framework for the city in a significantly different direction. The planning framework instilled in the new official plan is geared towards infill and intensification, land and service efficient, mixed use and transit-supported development. Provides for a wide range, variety of mix of housing types, tenure, and accommodation in all neighborhoods throughout the city, and which provides for and promotes opportunities for affordable and attainable housing accommodation. Back in 2012, we were one of the first municipalities in Ontario to permit as a right accessory apartments in all detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings, or what we call ADUs. Many municipalities across Ontario have varying degrees of exclusionary zoning, whereby certain zone categories or neighborhoods only permit detached housing. The city does not have exclusionary zoning. We have only 4 streamlined residential zones, all of which provide for a range of housing types, where the lowest density zone allows singles to townhouses and quadruplexes, and the highest density zone allowing triplexes to apartments. As mentioned, the city's housing mix in 2012 was 60, 20, and 20% low, medium, and high density housing. One of the goals of the official plan is to begin to balance out that overall provision of housing types and lessen the gap between low and high density housing opportunities. This is a long-term goal, and as it is a significant gap. However, from 2012 to the end of 2021, the ratio of new housing developed in the city has reversed. It is 22%, 34%, and 44% low, medium, and high density housing ratio, and working towards a greater overall balance of housing provision in the city and greater opportunities for affordable housing and attainable housing. Notwithstanding, the HAP report identifies further considerations to strengthen official plan policy and zoning regulations to support affordable housing initiatives. A number of these are identified on the screen before you. These items are being addressed through this zoning bylaw housekeeping review currently being undertaken by PBS. Other items are to be more appropriately addressed through an official plan conformity exercise. The province mandates that all lower tier municipalities undertake an official plan conformity exercise within 1 year of formal approval of an upper tier official plan. The region of Niagara approved a new official plan in June 2022, and which is currently awaiting formal approval by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. PBS has identified this required conformity exercise as a priority work plan item, anticipated to commence in the second quarter of next year. The HAP report recommends more prohibitive wording in official plan policy and a review of applicable vacancy rates and timelines when considering the conversion of rental accommodation to condominium tenure. In January 2018, Council adopted official plan number 17. The amendment clarifies existing condominium conversion policies in the official plan to protect rather than discourage against the loss of affordable housing, and it strengthens the criteria and timing for minimum rental vacancy thresholds when considering the conversion of rental accommodation to condominium ownership. Overall, these revisions strengthen policy to support a greater balance of housing tenure and provide for rental accommodation and affordable housing within the city. This action item in the HAP report is complete. Community improvement plans are one of the most effective tools available to the municipality to incentivize affordable housing projects. One of the priority items identified in the HAP report in 2017 was a review of the city's 2015 community improvement plan to support more affordable housing initiatives. In March 2019, Council directed a review of that 2015 CIP, and in November 2020 adopted a new community improvement plan, the 2020 CIP. Among other matters, the 2020 CIP adds a provision of affordable housing as a significant criteria and component in evaluating CIP project approvals for tax incentive programs, as well as increasing the value of the incentive for affordable housing developments versus those without an affordable housing component. When adopting the 2020 CIP, Council also approved a housing reserve fund, where the budgeted incentive value of any rescinded CIP project approval is redirected to the reserve fund to support other affordable housing initiatives. This may be in the form of waiving or rebating building permit or development application fees for affordable housing projects. The process and criteria to implement the reserve fund is currently under review. In addition, the 2020 CIP also recommended a separate one-time grant program to support the creation of accessory apartments, or ADUs, to further incentivize affordable housing opportunities. The ADU program provides a one-time grant up to $20,000 after project completion to support the retrofit of an accessory dwelling unit within an existing detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwelling unit that is 5 years in age or older. The program also provides for the creation of a detached ADU as well, subject to zoning approval. Council did not approve this program when adopting the 2020 CIP and directed it to be brought back for further consideration. On April 25th of this year, Council further considered the ADU program and again deferred the matter for staff response to questions and issues raised at that meeting. The Housing Action Plan status report before you tonight again recommends that the ADU program, as originally constituted as part of the 2020 CIP, be approved. Specific details of the ADU program are set out in Appendix 1 of the report, and an overview of the purpose and merits of the program and staff response to questions and issues raised at the April 25th Council meeting are set out in Appendix 2. The Development Charges Act enables municipalities to adopt a development charges bylaw to recover certain growth-related capital expenditures resulting from new development. This allows the municipality to collect development charges, or DCs, for different types of development, including residential, commercial, industrial, and mixed use. At the time of the HAP report in 2017, the region of Niagara was currently reviewing their existing DC bylaw. The city did not have one at that time. The HAP report identified that providing DC exemptions, reductions, or grants for affordable housing projects is a significant opportunity to encourage and support affordable housing initiatives, and recommended that the city actively lobby the region to include these provisions in their new DC bylaw. We fast forward a bit. The region reviewed and amended their DC bylaw in 2017 and again in 2022. And the city initiated a development charges study in 2020 and adopted a new DC bylaw in 2021. As you can see on the screen, both the city and the region's DC bylaw establish DCs for many types of development, including residential. They both also provide DC exemptions, reductions, and grant programs supporting affordable housing projects, as I said, as identified on the screen before you. Although not contemplated at the time of the HAP report in 2017 and only recently legislated in 2020, the province enables municipalities to adopt a community benefit charges bylaw, or a CBC bylaw. The bylaw enables municipalities to recover former eligible DC services, now not eligible under current DC legislation, for higher density residential developments. At the same time as directing the DC study in 2020, Council directed that a CBC study also be undertaken. And in July of this year, Council adopted the CBC bylaw. CBC bylaw imposes community benefit charges on higher density residential developments for new and redeveloped buildings that are 5 or more stories in height and that add 10 or more dwelling units. In addition, and similar to the DC bylaw, the CBC also provides exemptions and a grant program supporting affordable housing initiatives as identified on the screen. The HAP report identifies the inclusionary zoning as another tool to support affordable housing initiatives. In conjunction with and building upon the DC and CBC studies, in 2020, Council also directed that an inclusionary zoning study be undertaken. Legislated in 2016, the province enables municipalities to authorize the use of inclusionary zoning within 800 meters of a major transit station area. For St. Catharines, this represents the downtown bus terminal and the GO transit station in the West End. This zoning tool requires that a certain percentage of units in new developments are affordable. The cost of providing affordable units that will be shifted to the private sector and ensures that affordable units are mixed with market value units. Given provincial timeline requirements for implementation of DC and CBC studies, the inclusionary zoning study was identified as the third component of Council study direction. The study is currently ongoing and expected to be completed in Q3 2023. The HAP report also identified the potential creation for municipal policy that, where appropriate, condition of sale of lands declared surplus by the municipality should first be considered for affordable housing initiatives before being put to other uses. In January 2020, Council created the Surplus Lands Development Task Force, made up of the mayor and 4 councils with administrative support from various city departments. In part, the task force is charged with a review of a request for a proposal specification for the potential sale of surplus municipal land in a manner to first support affordable housing initiatives prior to consideration for other uses. And one example of this is the sale of 320 Canadian Street, formerly occupied by the city's Community Recreation and Cultural Services Department. The property was declared surplus by the municipality and recently sold to private interest with the condition that they only be developed for a defined mix of affordable, social, and market rate housing. The HAP report identified the potential creation of a Municipal Development Corporation, or MDC, as a tool to support affordable housing initiatives. At the present time, staff manages these municipal real estate assets and projects, including the acquisition and disposition of land. Additionally, the Surplus Lands Development Task Force uses terms of reference to guide the strategic disposition of certain key properties identified by Council. The creation of an MDC would transfer some or all of these responsibilities to a separate body independent of Council and staff. The Municipal Act enables local municipalities to establish an MDC, in which may provide for a wide mandate, including disposition of municipal property, marketing of surplus lands, and making strategic acquisition of lands in accordance with municipal planning strategies, including the provision of affordable housing opportunities. In November 2020, Council directed staff to report on the opportunity to develop an MDC, and in Q1 2022, a consultant was retained to study and evaluate an MDC that undertake strategic real estate functions for the city. It is anticipated that a report on the feasibility of an MDC for this valley will be brought before Council in Q1 2023. The level of certainty and timelines for the development approval process can be a significant factor in pursuing development initiatives, funding, and ultimately project success. The HAP report identified the need to streamline the approvals process, including greater certainty provided for development application processes, requirements, and timelines at the outset of project initiatives, through pre-consultation to the final stages of project evaluation and approvals. This consideration is not limited to planning approvals, but also to building permits, scheduling of inspections, external agency approvals, etc. This recommendation applies to all planning and building applications, but an enhanced commitment to streamline the development approval process is also seen as an especially valuable tool to advance affordable housing projects, which in many instances involve assimilating other requirements, funding mechanisms, approvals from different agencies not typical of standard applications. To this end, the city added a development expediter position, staff complement of EDTS in 2019, in order to provide support and assistance to development proponents to navigate the various planning policies, regulations, requirements, and timelines involved in the development approvals process. To further support affordable housing initiatives, the HAP report also recommended the addition of a PBS staff member specializing in affordable housing programs, requirements, grants, and funding options offered by the various levels of governments and agencies, and to facilitate affordable housing collaboration and solicit funding options. To date, this position has not been created. In January 2022, the province announced the Streamlined Development Approval Fund, providing temporary financial support to 39 mid and large-size Ontario municipalities, including St. Catharines, and which, among other matters, is intended to implement actions to expedite development approvals with the goal of bringing more housing units online, and in doing so to provide more housing supply options, greater balance between supply and demand, and more stable and attainable market and rental housing values. The city was awarded funding by the province to implement initiatives such as e-permitting systems, temporary staff, online application portals, and approved initiatives aimed at streamlining processes and expediting approvals that bring housing units to market. Utilizing this funding support, the city is currently undertaking a business process optimization for a development approval study to address above. The results of this study are anticipated to come before Council in Q1 2023. So there are very, very many initiatives being undertaken by the city. They're all coordinated and collaborated and they can't be considered in isolation, but have to be a cohesive study operation. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the thorough presentation, Mr. Bellows, and we have questions of our council. Councillor Kushner, you got a question of staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, a very comprehensive, well-researched report, but I have two questions. One is CIP. If we look at the tax rebates we've given, they've not resulted in more affordable housing, but contrary, into very expensive units. And how are we going to deal with that? We can put more weight on regarding affordable housing, put a greater weight on that component, but I don't see that happening right now. Can you please comment on that?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, obviously the 2020 CIP is very new. We have not had any applications as yet with affordable housing component that have been approved. So we haven't really had the opportunity to assess the CIP as yet for affordable housing.
Thank you. And my second question is with respect to accessory buildings, accessory units, I should say. And if you look at South St. Catharines with student housing, most of the small bungalows have accessory units, or they have rooms that they rent. And they have every incentive to convert a home into with the second unit. And I don't understand why, given their financial incentive to do so, and they're already doing it, why we have to discuss giving them some type of grant up to $20,000. If you take a look at a conversion, let's suppose it costs $20,000 to do a conversion of a basement into an accessory unit, and you'll get at least $1,000 a month for it. So that's $11,000, $12,000 a year. So the payback period is very, very short. So I don't understand the logic of having an incentive to allow them to convert to an accessory unit.
Is that a question or
Yeah.
the logic is that overall, and we're talking about affordable housing, the direction of the 2020 CIP in part is to support affordable housing initiatives. The ADU program certainly supports the opportunity for creation of accessory units. In the South End, you're talking, there's probably a lot of accessory units that aren't legal. For one, they've been there for a long time. The size of these accessory units are smaller in scale. They're intended to be subordinate to the primary dwelling unit. So I don't know the going rate for what's being charged on these units, but the intent of the program is certainly to provide for more affordable and attainable housing, whether it's students or other age groups. That's the intent.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
All right. Before I get to Councillor Townsend, and again, just for clarification, maybe I'll look at Director Kitse on this. The need for accessory dwelling units is increasing in communities. I don't think it's legal for a community or for a city to prevent one group of the renting market to be able to access these kind of units. I think it'd be against the Human Rights Code, but I'll go to Director Kitse as to the efficacy of the ADU and as well how we can't prevent ADUs or have any kind of language that would prevent students from being in those units.
Through the mayor to all of council, yes, that's correct. The provincial government in recent years has actually required accessory dwelling units in all low-density residential zones across the province. The city of St. Catharines was much more innovative and proactive in this regard, actually implementing that all the way back in 2013. There has been discussions and rulings through the Human Rights Commission about not being able to dictate or limit who lives in housing, whether it be rental or ownership tenure.
Thank you, Director.
Okay. Yeah, if I can, Mr. Mayor, in no way did I imply that there shouldn't be accessory units for students. Thank you.
Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is in regards to the affordable housing aspect of this. How are we going to be able to ensure that these units would be considered some affordable units?
The very size and function of the units ensures, well, at least for attainable housing, we can't ensure that they're actually affordable, but we can ensure that they're attainable and affordable, and versus other types of housing units within the municipality, just by the size and function and this ordinate function of these units. They're intended to accommodate one or two people, a very small family, etc. Obviously limited in size and the scope of the overall dwelling unit.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess I'm just concerned at the fact that the average rent right now for a basement in St. Catharines is about $1,800 to $2,000 a month. And if I'm a property owner and I see this incentive to renovate the basement, I mean, you could make the money back pretty quickly renting. I'm trying to, obviously we want to get people into homes, but I guess, yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I got Councillor Porter, then Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm using these headphones. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to draw people's attention through you to some papers that just came out from the Monk School. It's the Institute on Municipal Finance and Governance and there's a paper called the Municipal Role in Housing. And I think it's a critical document for residents, for councillors, for city staff, because I work in affordable housing and eviction prevention, and there's so much misunderstanding and misinformation about what the city can and can't do, who's responsible for what. And when you're trying to explain it to people, they just say, oh, you're trying to pass the buck. No, actually, I'm not. So there's 4 papers here, and it explains what has happened with affordable housing and social housing when 30 years ago, the federal government pretty much absconded its responsibilities. And for every dollar that the federal government invests in social and affordable housing, other levels of government have to invest $13. And when the city only has property taxes and user fees, we absolutely cannot address housing affordability on our own. We have no means to control rent. And so when we're creating housing, doing zoning approvals, other than inclusionary zoning, which is also quite limited and prescribed, there's really no other way to create housing affordability. So I'm speaking to you as probably a person who is a bit more working class than some of the other people on council. My parents didn't really own their own house until very recently. They always, my grandmother actually owned the house that we lived in Cape Breton. My grandparents lived in the basement for a while. When my parents were facing retirement and didn't have a lot of retirement funds and no equity here, my family and I talked about having them into one of our houses. My brothers and I were just starting out, didn't have the means and the capital to create an accessory dwelling unit. This would have been a perfect way for us to keep my parents here, but they ended up having to move 2,000 kilometers away to be able to afford to live comfortably in a retirement. So not everybody has the same means, comes with the same sort of capital and inheritances. And there are a lot of families who are now having to move in together. There are adults needing to stay, move back in with their parents, or they're just not able to afford moving out into the house. There are grandparents to move in. And this CIP incentive, which I wish we had included, makes a ton of sense. And there are similar types of incentive programs in other municipalities. There's one, I think, in York region. It's an incentive program to legalize accessory dwelling units that are currently non-legal. The benefit of doing that is it becomes safe because it requires a building inspection and a fire inspection. And staff members can correct me if I'm wrong, once you've created an accessory dwelling unit, it actually has some municipal tax implications. And the value on your house gets reassessed. So it actually, over time, makes money for the municipality. So in terms of an investment, we create housing and it does pay for itself. I would like to see, I do believe we can have criteria for this. I know staff don't like to implement policies that can't be monitored and enforced, and I understand that. But in some of the other municipalities, there are criteria for these types of grant programs. And I do think it's important to look at all factors. We might get a ton of applications. I think it would be incredibly important to take an equity approach when looking at this accessory dwelling unit application. And I would encourage staff to come up with something. Maybe you can't monitor these things, but I can tell you there's tons of families who need to create housing. And once you create an additional unit of housing, it does alleviate the pressure. I spend my entire day on eviction prevention, rapid rehousing, and trying to find housing for people. Not only do we have an affordability crisis that is being created by 3 levels of, I don't want to say our level of government, but by the province and the federal government for a lack of investing in all kinds of housing programs, and also keeping disability rates essentially the same as they have been as 1986, if like when you match that to inflation, we have to create more housing. So it's not just a matter of putting the tools in place to partner with other levels of government to create housing. We just have to create more space. This is a way to do it. It's a way that makes sense. For me, it's a no-brainer. Other municipalities are doing it, and accessory dwelling units. There's widespread understanding by people who understand housing policy that this is absolutely critical. Even Niagara and the Lake is now allowing accessory dwelling units. And this is something we should be encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Councillor Phillips.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't support the idea of incentivizing developers to create these ADUs. I'm not saying that ADUs should not exist, but I know in my ward there's been companies from Toronto coming in, buying houses and turning a 3-bedroom bungalow into a 6-bedroom house. And as Councillor Townsend said, it's not affordable for people who are in need of housing. It's for a young middle-class couple moving to town, and we have to, if we're going to do this and allow them to be given money by us, we have to ensure that the rent that they are charging is in fact at the affordable level for people who are first-time renters or in look of housing, something like that, because right now it's not happening. I can think of 3 or 4 houses that I've seen as I campaign, and also the people who own them, and I know these are Toronto owners, they don't maintain the outside of the house like they should, and the people who are living inside are saying, I'm paying big rent, why should I have to mow the lawn? The owner should. I'm renting, I'm not owning. Why would the owner not have a landscape company come and do that? And I've had to send in reports to our bylaw office to have these places inspected. So if we're going to do this, and I still don't think we should, I wouldn't support it. These people can, if they want to have a accessory dwelling unit in the basement or wherever, they should be able to afford to do it, because as Councillor Townsend said, in a short period of time, that money is paid back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Phillips. I got Councillor Garcia, then Councillor McPherson, then Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on, I think, Councillor Kushner, Townsend, and now Phillips make some excellent points. Obviously, the ADUs have already been approved that people can build these things, but the rents that are going to be charged are really high. Like, we're ranking way up there with in the high teens, I think, or tens in terms of the top rental markets in the country. So my question is, like Councillor Phillips, I don't support incentivizing this, but I would like to ask for you, Mr. Bellows, since you developed this report and you worked on it, do you have any ideas as to how you could make this program ensure that the new units have to be rented at an affordable rate?
Through you, the Mayor, to tackle that issue you're talking about, the implementation of requirements such as tenant income verification, rental rate thresholds, affordable housing wait lists, tenant selection, all beyond the scope and scale of the original ADU grant program as recommended. Also requires specialized knowledge and staff resources to administer it. Niagara Regional Housing, as provincially designated housing provider, has the staff resources and the mandate to do so. The program wasn't intended, nor the funding in the budget approved already by Council for grant programs under 2020 CIP, to be to be providing a grant for a lot of these dwelling units. It's probably, we're talking 4 or 5 a year. Like I say, it adds to the broad spectrum of rental opportunity in this city. And we can't necessarily control who charges what for the rent, but we can control the function and size of the unit. And that's important in controlling the market rent that people will pay for those units.
Thank you. So your answer, if I read it correctly, is that we cannot control it. So
that wasn't exactly what I said.
Okay.
We can control it, but the staff resources to do it would be very significant. Very significant to the point where why would you even have the program to do it, essentially?
Okay, thank you for that. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a question through you to the city clerk. Mr. Bello just said that he figures there would only be 4 to 5 of these grants a year, although again, we can't control that depending on how many people apply. But it seems to me that we're being asked in this report to approve a grant of up to 20,000 when we're saying there could be 4 to 5 a year, and it seems to me that's contrary to what's allowed under our, quote, lame duck status.
I'm going to look to Tammy about how it's actually funded versus a program approval.
Thank you. Through the clerk to the councillor. So first of all, when the CIP was approved in 2020, the accessory dwelling unit program was already included. It was just deferred for further dialogue and discussion, which we're having this evening. However, at that time, there was a budget approved for the accessory dwelling unit. So when the senior project manager says that we're looking at 4 to 5 approvals a year, that's because that's the only budget that we had for the accessory dwelling unit program.
Thank you for that clarification.
We're not approving a budget tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're saying that we have already approved the budget, yet my recollection was that we rejected this the last time. But anyway, you would know better. Thank you, Mr.
Mayor. Next up, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a comment first and then a question. I think there's an assumption that some of us are making that it is for rental units only. The ADU, if I'm not mistaken, can be used by anyone to perhaps build a accessory dwelling unit for a parent or a child, that would fall under the grant.
So I'll look to Mr. Bellows.
Yes, accessory dwelling unit can be occupied by any individual. And as Director of Planning had indicated previously, through human rights, we cannot dictate who lives in a dwelling unit. That's partly why we don't call single family homes anymore single family, just detached homes. We're not allowed to do that under human rights. So we cannot dictate who lives in a unit. We're trying to provide opportunities and a balance of housing opportunities in this city for everybody.
Right. Okay, that's great. No, I was just trying to make the point that you wouldn't necessarily, you may perhaps, or someone might use the grant to allow their parent to move in with them, which they probably wouldn't be renting the unit to their parent. It would be an out-of-pocket expense. So seeing the grant.
That's quite possible, and I think it's becoming more common, with the change in demographics, certainly. It's also becoming more common the other way with kids moving back home or of an adult age.
Right. Okay, thank you. And I guess the other question I have, and I think I recall at some point, I'm not sure, Mr. Bellows, if you answer or Director Kate, that there was some mention of revisiting or looking at some housekeeping with regards to accessory dwelling units and bedrooms and size and that sort of thing. Is that something will eventually happen, or, because that I'm sure would help with the size of the units that we're talking about?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, that's correct. On one of the slides of the presentation as well in the report, we had drawn attention to that the housekeeping zoning bylaw exercise that we're currently undertaking is taking another look at the maximum size of accessory dwelling units that's currently captured.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll make an assumption that, after a period of time, let's say a year, maybe 2, I don't know, there would be a revisiting of the program, or at least an update as to how many people have actually applied, how much has actually been spent.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, we do annual reporting on building permits, and we can include that as a type.
Okay. Thank you. I just, when I look around at, as Councillor Porter said, the number of units that we don't have, and then, generationally, people trying to take care of their parents or have kids move back in, it seems like a no-brainer to me to kind of encourage that. And could I ask that part of the plan, that there be a communications plan developed to actually encourage people to take, to utilize the program? Because I think sometimes these grant programs, especially something like this, or even the heritage programs, are kind of not really spoken about or shared. And it would be a great opportunity to get, encourage people to build ADUs. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Miller, you're up.
Thanks. Just a question, the first question, I think the only item in the report that there's no action, there's never been action on is around hiring a staff member specifically in the planning department dedicated to affordable housing. Why has that come forward and council's rejected it, or why hasn't there been action on that?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I can't comment if it was ever brought forward prior to my arrival in 2018. I don't believe that it was. That being said, and you've heard it through several Ernst & Young reports, the staffing strategy, among others, about the resource requests across the entire corporation. And as SLT has come forward in various years to council with requests for FTEs, they've typically been prioritized in other areas.
Okay, I hope that's something we keep on the agenda, because I know we're always looking to, well, some of us always looking to add staff to planning department, and it's not always easy, but hopefully that remains in sight. I did have a question. Councillor Phillips made the point about around the accessory dwelling units and developers. My reading of the eligibility, the grant eligibility, it seems like these are for existing properties, though there is mention of new accessory dwelling units, but doesn't mention if they're only on existing properties. So I think it says 5 years or more. Does that apply across the board to the eligibility for the grant, that they have to be built on properties that have existed for 5 years or more?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the eligibility is that it's essentially a retrofit of a single semi or townhouse unit that has existed for 5 years or more. So we're not incentivizing new development that are also creating accessory units.
Okay, yeah, so we're looking at expanding sort of the density of existing properties, not adding a grant for new developments.
Correct.
Okay. With regard, I don't know who on staff, if anyone can answer this, but there's been concern about the cost of rent in the city, which we talk about a lot. Would it be fair to say that a lack of available units impacts the cost of rent? Is there a relationship between vacancies and the cost of rent?
I believe so, and there's a number of studies out there that link that, the lack of housing opportunities, the lack of housing availability. So it's supply and demand.
Okay, then I would say that if we're concerned about the cost of rent, we should be doing all we can to add more units, which would include approving the accessory dwelling unit grant. Another question in the report, it mentions a couple times the official plan, which was approved about 10 years ago, the conformity exercise. Is there a target date for that being completed?
Required by the province to undertake a conformity exercise within 1 year of the approval of the upper tier official plan, i.e. the region of Niagara official plan. The region just adopted their official plan, and now the final formal approval of that is subject to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which they're reviewing it right now. So we don't have a succinct date, but we anticipate that that approval will come in Q1, Q2 of next year, and then we are required to undertake a conformity exercise within a year of that time.
Okay, and within those, a couple aspects I'm particularly interested in. Are we looking at removing, there's a mention of the height restrictions. Is that something we're looking at citywide or sort of on a zone by zone basis?
Well, we're gonna look at it. It could be citywide. It could be zone by zone or certain neighborhoods. That's something we're gonna examine.
Okay, hopefully, yeah, I'm certainly a proponent of removing as many of those height restrictions as we can. So I'll be interested in that. I think it talks about in the report, I think a really forward-thinking thing we did in 2012 was approving ADUs as of right. So you didn't need sort of bylaw amendment approval. Are we looking at that as of right for upzoning in the city? Are there still significant single dwelling restrictions that exist in the city?
I wouldn't say there's significant single family restrictions in the city. Our zoning is, like I had indicated, we allow for a great mix of housing types in all zones, in all neighborhoods. So it's quite flexible. So we're looking at things like not allowing downzoning of properties that may be subject to a redevelopment proposal, things like that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I definitely would like us to see us restrict or not allow downzoning. I'm just curious about what we can do to add more density as of right, so it doesn't become a political issue every time we want to add more density throughout the city. Is that a consideration to avoid, a lot of these higher density builds becoming political issues every single time?
Well, one of the items identified in the presentation tonight was to look at consideration for allowing greater height for affordable housing projects. So we're going to be looking at that and maybe other criteria as well. But certainly, we're not going to be allowing that everywhere. I don't think, in your neighborhood, you necessarily want to see a 10-story apartment building beside your single. There's certain criteria we'd have to look at.
Okay, I'd certainly be interested in following that conversation. I think there are places, I get it, but there are places that have sort of, like Auckland in New Zealand, that have sort of allowed upzoning and higher density as of right, that have seen a lot of success in encouraging new units, which again, I think would help with real estate costs. And again, I think there's two things in the official plan or in the report that we mentioned. In the official plan, we're trying to target 30% of new builds being affordable housing. I think it's safe to say we're not hitting that. We're doing okay, but we're not, I don't think we're hitting 30%. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And it also mentions we have had a lot of success 2012 to 2021 moving from low density in terms of what we're adding as new units to high density, from 62% low density pre-2012 to only 23.5% new units or low density since then. So we're doing a good job there, and I think the height restrictions and allowing more density as of right would further help add affordable housing and higher density. The last thing I just want to say about the ADU, I think we're losing sight of who would use this. I think it would mostly be people looking, again, for family members to move in. I think we, for better or worse, do have a lot of incentives for new developments and, hundreds of thousands of dollars in rebates and things like that. We're talking about a pretty small amount of money going to local residents that I think is going to add a lot of needed units. And as Councillor McPherson says, and as I can attest to, some of this isn't for income. Some of this is just for family harmony, let's say, in terms of adults moving back in with kids, kids moving back in with adults. So I don't want this to become a thing where we're sort of subsidizing, the profits of these huge developments. That's really not what we're talking about with ADUs. So I think if we have the money for the rebates in the CIP program, then I think we can provide the money for the accessory dwelling unit grants as well. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Thank you, Councillor Miller. Any further questions on this report? Okay, so no further questions. We've got a motion, so we're gonna have to break up the motion. Before we get there, I just want to say I hope the community has an opportunity to read the entire report. A lot of folks on their armchair quarterbacks, I'll call them armchair critics, would like to say we haven't done anything on housing in our community. I think this is a great report that shows what's within the city's capabilities. The city is attempting to create more and different types of housing in St. Catharines, starting in, as the report says, 2012 with the Garden City Plan. That was, I think, way beyond its time in terms of comparison to other municipalities, and it has proven to be a very effective guiding document, a policy tool to increase different types of housing in our community. And I think when you go through this report, and again, I hope the public and those who are running for council have an opportunity to go, because the most frustrating thing I see is when people criticize the city for not doing anything and their candidates for office, they haven't even taken the time to read through the reports of what we're actually working on. So when you go through this report, you see how hard the planning department's been working to create these policies, and the policies don't happen overnight, as council can attest to. But when you go through this and you see the different levers that have been added to the city's toolbox for housing, beyond a couple that are going to be coming forward in the next term of council, like inclusionary zoning, hopefully the Municipal Development Corporation will go through. I know there's some councillors who have concerns about it. I hope they read the reports and get better educated on the importance of the Municipal Development Corporation, but those are a couple areas that I hope people pay attention to for the next term of council, because a lot of the work, a lot of the foundation has been set. I'm really proud of what the staff have done to help address the affordable housing and the housing issue in our community. A lot more needs to be done. But I think, as Councillor Miller has noted, anytime we've come forward with a significant project, there's a pushback from neighbors and members of the community, including members of council who may not want to see the kind of density that's required to address the housing issue. So it's going to lead forward-thinking councillors, forward-thinking staff to make sure that if we want to really address the housing crisis, you're going to have to you have to be courageous, and you're going to have to look at some of these levers that we have in our possession to be able to actually build the kind of housing that's required, and that includes the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So I need a mover and a seconder. We're going to split the motions up because a couple councillors can't vote on a couple of the units. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Miller, Councillor McPherson, will have them as the overall movers of the motion. We're going to break out the first one, which is receiving the information. And then we'll do the second one, which is being a part of the ADUs, the Community Improvement Plan. And then obviously the third one is the bylaw. So we'll do the second and third motion and fourth as a unit unto itself. So we're going to start with the first one. We could just do a show of hands if you want. And this is to receive the information. All in favor of receiving the information? That's carried. Now we'll do a recorded vote on the second one, which is the other two paragraphs. And I'll look to the clerk to call the question.
If you'd like, we can do the third one as well at the same time.
Thank you.
They all mean the same thing.
Thank you.
So this is on clause.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Question, please, clarification. You asked if there were questions of the planner, but can we comment on these sections of the motion now, or?
No, everyone's pretty much had their comments. We're just going to go right to the question. We're going to go right to the vote. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
No.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
No.
Councillor Garcia.
A big no.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
No.
Councillor Williamson.
No.
Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that passes.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on now to the next one, which I believe is a presentation. And again, this is the Parkland dedication bylaw. Prior to discussing the report, council will receive a presentation from Amanda Knudsen, the Director of Community Project and Development Planner. And she will provide a PowerPoint. There will be questions if anyone has questions. We do have Daryl Abbs from Watson & Associates who will be able to answer technical questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Knudsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to Daryl Abbs, who's joining us virtually, Gary Scanlon from Watson & Associates is also in the meeting this evening to answer questions about the very technical report that's attached to our staff report as Appendix 1. So this evening, CRCS and planning staff are recommending that council adopt a new modern parkland dedication bylaw that will better position the city to meet future parkland needs for its residents than if we were to continue with the status quo. Parkland dedication is a tool under the Planning Act where land or a cash payment in lieu of land is received by the municipality as a condition of development for parks purposes. The condition can be applied to residential, institutional, commercial, and industrial uses through various development applications. Parkland dedication, similar to community benefit charges and development charges that council has recently visited, is a growth funding tool that ensures that the cost of providing parkland needed for new growth is paid for by that growth and not by the taxpayer. Parkland dedication in the city isn't new. We have used parkland dedication as a means to acquire land for parks purposes and parks improvements since 1974. However, our existing bylaw is outdated and it does not capture the full range of the authorities granted to us under the Planning Act. At present, the city only collects 5% parkland dedication through development approvals for residential uses. Commercial, institutional, and industrial developments are not subject to parkland dedication. And this represents a missed opportunity in terms of securing lands and the resources to bolster and improve the city's network of parklands and open spaces. In May of this year, the city retained Watson & Associates to complete a series of analyses to help us better understand what the city's future parkland needs are and how we can meet those needs. These analyses address 3 primary areas of concern. Number 1, how much parkland and cash reserves will the city need by 2041 to accommodate population growth? Number 2, how much additional land and cash reserves will we require beyond what we already have today? And thirdly, how does imposing a broader range of parkland dedication rates through more development applications help us to bridge any resulting gap between those 2 things? For To give a bit of background, at the time of its approval in 2005, the city's parks policy plan confirmed that we were meeting our overall parkland service standard at that time. However, it was noted that there are considerable variations in service levels between each city district and between the various parkland classifications. The central and the west districts of the city are identified as having the least amount of park space per capita. In terms of future land needs, Watts' analysis shows that the city will require an estimated 55 additional hectares of land in 2041, for parkland to support its population growth. Should council not approve a new parkland dedication bylaw this evening, we can anticipate an estimated shortfall of 46 hectares of parkland by that date in 2041. This shortfall decreases to 18 hectares of land when the rates under the new bylaw are applied. Similarly, Watson's analysis shows that the city will require an estimated $251 million in 2041 to meet parkland needs for growth. Should council not approve a new parkland dedication bylaw this evening, we can anticipate an estimated shortfall of $235 million by 2041. But again, this significantly decreases to $55 million with the adoption of a new bylaw with a broader range of rates. So in terms of implementing this, these parkland dedication rates, the city's new bylaw, recommended by both planning and CRCS staff and supported by the analysis that was completed by Watson and Associates, provides that parkland dedication rates of 5% be imposed for residential and institutional uses, 2% for commercial and industrial uses, in addition to alternative residential rates that are allowed under the Planning Act. An alternative residential rate, as described in the report, better correlates with residential density. The payment or land dedication is calculated based on the number of dwelling units proposed, as opposed to just the total land area of the development. The new bylaw will also allow the city to impose, should it wish to, a per lot parkland dedication rate of $6,100 to be imposed only through the severance process, where one new lot is being created for the purposes of one new detached dwelling. That figure of $6,100 would be indexed annually based on data provided and compiled by CMHC. The per lot rate removes the requirement for a developer to have an appraisal report prepared for the purposes of calculating what their cash in lieu of parkland rate would be. So this represents a savings to them both in terms of money and time. So in summary, the city's existing parkland dedication bylaw is outdated, and the limited scope of its application represents a variety of missed opportunities to receive land and additional cash reserves. A new parkland dedication bylaw will support the expectation that future parkland needs stemming from population growth are to be paid for by that growth and not by the taxpayer. The additional land and reserves that are expected under the new bylaw will help to bridge the gap between the amount of parkland the city has today and what we will need in 2041 to accommodate population growth. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that informative presentation, Ms. Knudsen. And do we have any questions of the presenter? Councillor Phillips.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed that the cost for residential is 5%. Again, if we want to talk about affordable housing, if there's an affordable housing building going up, in order to keep the costs of those units down, would we not consider reducing that percent, provided the builder can prove that you pick a percent, 50%, whatever, is going to be affordable housing. To me, if we could reduce that percent from 5% to, say, 3%, then the units are going to be cheaper and more affordable. Is that a consideration?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes. The Parkland dedication bylaw sets out a list of exemptions. These exemptions mirror those that were included in the community benefit charges bylaw that council considered recently. The rate for of Parkland dedication for something like affordable housing is in fact reduced to 0. It doesn't apply.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Williamson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. First, I'll just state that I am definitely supportive of this plan, but I do see it as one that could probably go a whole lot further and somewhat of a work in progress. And I think there's a section in the report that references future works that need to be done. Firstly, to Ms. Knutson, in terms of the background, what percentage of the time in the past roughly have we taken land versus taken the money in lieu of the land? Would you have any idea on that?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I don't know a specific number, but I can tell you through my experience, 16 years with this city, that we rarely take land. It is almost always cash in lieu.
Right, yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. To me, as a city that doesn't want to expand our urban area boundaries, we have little green space or natural land outside of what we already have in parks, and some of that we've lost in recent years. So that, to me, that's a bit, I don't know where these 55 hectares are going to come from. And we have some people looking at some of our lands as surplus lands available to be sold or to be used for development purposes. And there's cities like Kingston who have a pretty progressive plan that specifically gears what Parkland, what they want. They target lands, privately owned lands, etc. When it comes available, they acquire it and add it into the Parkland inventory or the natural lands inventory in their municipality. Is that okay? Sorry, I should stick to some questions first. So we've got. Is there an opportunity, Ms. Knutson, for us to be able to, instead of just using it for generally parks purposes, which seems to be a fairly vague statement, to actually target it to use for tree planting, naturalization, actual green initiatives that promote climate change mitigation or climate change adaptation at least, and then maybe move towards mitigation?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the Planning Act is a bit vague in terms of how the money can be used. So cash in lieu reserves can be used to acquire land. The city would make those decisions based on our strategic documents in terms of where the land is needed, or to improve existing parkland. And by improvements, we're not necessarily speaking about facilities. Those types of things would be captured under development charges, but if there are parks that we know require improvements in terms of, say they have a stormwater management issue and we need to regrade, if we need a new parking area or the parking area needs to be repaved, we can dip into that Parkland Reserve Fund to pay for those types of items.
Thank you. And is there a mechanism, like recently there was a sale of lands in the south end, which had valley lands and a fairly significant natural area, treat area that we bid on and lost. And to me, that would have been a natural one for us to add to our inventory. Are there ways that we can inform private landowners who have these kinds of parcels that we would be interested in acquiring those and making them aware of it in advance?
Through the mayor to the councillor, as you read in the report, there is future work to be done in terms of updating our parks policy plan that is nearly 20 years old now. That parks policy plan needs to be revamped to more clearly identify where we need land and why we need land, and that, of course, would be a public document available through its preparation. There would be a public process wherein the public would be advised of what, from staff perspective, the priorities should be.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Mayor, through you to the planner, when will we be looking at reviewing this policy and seeing how effective it is? We've got a new council coming on board shortly. Is this an annual thing we will be able to look at, or when can it be reviewed again?
A comprehensive review of our parks policy plan is not currently budgeted for. It is something that is on our priority list for policy document updates. Some of the funding for that project can be derived from development charges. The coffers have to, be filled first, however.
Okay, I'm happy to yield the floor, but I'm definitely in support. I think it's a good improvement, but I think there's some gaps, and I think there's areas where it can be enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Kushner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question is quite similar. Where are the 56 hectares available?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's no secret that it's difficult to acquire land at this time, not only because of the availability of the land or the lack thereof, but also due to cost. So in terms of strategic moves moving forward and an update to our parks policy plan, there will need to be alternative ways of acquiring land. We're not just talking about green virgin land that can be acquired. There could be a large derelict building in the downtown core that comes for sale. With additional money in our parkland dedication reserves, we'll be in a better position to bid on those types of land. Similar examples might be schools that are surplused, churches that are shuttering, these types of things. Like all development that is happening in St. Catharines right now, we have to think outside the box. Nothing happens on greenfield land anymore. We have to be able to compete with the rest of the market to acquire land, whether they are constrained or not.
Okay, and would expropriation be a tool?
Through the mayor to the councillor, we would have to have a certain citywide policy environment in effect that would dictate times that we would be expropriating. Amanda spoke earlier to the need to update our parks policy master plan among other items. We are looking at it. As you know, we have just started the Ontario Street Corridor secondary plan process, and we will be looking in that neighborhood for at park needs, and that is an area where we can foresee some additional land for parks. As we undertake other neighborhood level exercises like that, we could capture in secondary plan level policies the appropriate location of perhaps additional park space, and work with the rest of SLT to identify strategic priorities in terms of park space and development. It's worth noting or repeating from the presentation that, in 2005, we were kind of meeting our targets. What has changed is our growth targets and the style of development that we are currently implementing. So for our downtown, while we do have some beautiful park space, once we bring another 20,000 people downtown, we will be very deficient, and urban parks look much different than suburban parks. So we do need to continue to build up our reserve funds so that when we are in a position to pull the trigger on an acquisition opportunity, or if there's a strategic location for a park place that perhaps we do have to look at expropriation in as a last resort, then at least we have the coffers to do so.
Because they also look at the comment that West St. Catharines is deficient in parkland, but I have the difficulty interpreting where that parkland would be required. But that is another issue. You indicated that for a severed lot, the amount would be $6,400, and that would be less than what we have now, which is 5% in lieu of land dedication. And if a severed lot is worth 200,000, then what we're getting now would be 10,000. So why the difference between what we are getting now and what is being proposed?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the per lot rate is $6,100, in fact, and it is based on absorbed construction values in our St. Catharines, Niagara, CMHC area. So instead of, the intent of it is instead of having the developer go out and provide its appraisal to understand the value of their land, we're taking the average value of land in the city and applying it across the board only in circumstances where someone is severing a property for the purposes of one dwelling on one lot. So in some cases, you may see that we collect a bit less than the 5% would turn out to be. In other cases, perhaps we collect more than the 5% would turn out to be.
Thank you. I'm fully supportive of the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a broader question related to Parkland, and I don't know if city staff can answer this, but I'll put the question out and maybe somebody can respond. The region of Halton and Burlington and Oakville, they've had acquisition policies, I think since the 70s, around beachfront and waterfront properties where they've been acquiring houses for, I think, decades to create beachfront like that. I think they've designated some waterfront property as Parkland. Can anyone answer why this really hasn't happened in St. Catharines or the Niagara region? It just seems like a logical thing to do rather than spend some of the millions of dollars that we've had to spend on shoreline protection. If we have to create parkland, shouldn't we be thinking along these lines?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the city's parks policy plan obviously identified areas where the city has service gaps, parkland service gaps, and then and provided recommendations on where the city should be picking up lands. These recommendations, again, if you'll recall, they're from 2005. So in 2005, the approved document indicates that we should be picking up waterfront lands wherever possible. This can be done through land dedication, parkland dedication, but could also be in terms of getting cash, but it can also be done through development applications that are adjacent to the water. We can take 5% of those lands. So certainly the policy directive has always been there for things like waterfront park acquisition. But again, it comes down really to the whether the land that's actually up for grabs is even appropriate in terms of its size or location. So we might have a development that sits along the water proposed, but the size of the properties are so small such that 5% represents really just a sliver. Maybe that sliver could be beneficial for just a link from a road to the shoreline, but a lot of the time it is not. It just doesn't seem like appropriate. Other opportunities or priorities in the Parks Policy Plan for your information are special urban parks in the downtown, something that we're seeing a lot more of lately. So while you may not have seen us pick up waterfront lands, we're certainly creating a lot of new special urban, smaller parkettes in the downtown core.
Okay, thank you. Just my cursory view is that there was kind of a master plan over the years to do more along the waterfront. So I think maybe an overarching vision or a master planning exercise around our waterfront might be necessary, and I think would require the region's input. I just wanted to throw this out there because I think shoreline protection, we had to do emergency shoreline protection, and it was quite expensive. It wrecked a part of a beach area. And I think because we don't have this overarching vision around the waterfront, we end up making short-term decisions instead of coming up with something for the long term. So thank you very much for your work, and to planning staff for all of the modernization around our development charges, getting us community benefits charges, and then modernizing this. We're heading in a really good direction.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Porter. Any other? Councillor Littleton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was waiting to just also kind of carry on to what Councillor Porter said. I just want to, sometimes I remember I was speaking with some of the planning staff the other day about this, and I'm thinking, why wasn't this done before? Like, this makes sense. Why? So for everybody out there, 1974, great year. I was born. And to think that, I was born in that year, and that is the last time that this bylaw was looked at. You got to wonder why. Why did this happen? Why has the city not been proactive on that for so long? And I think a lot of times it becomes complacency where, the city's just going along and maybe some people that are sitting around this table just going along and not really thinking outside the box. And sometimes it's a new person that shows up with these ideas, or it's a new director who shows up with some ideas. And I just want to really acknowledge the work of Director Kitay. She's been here just since the end of 2018. And in that time, we've had so many new things before us. And as Councillor Porter said, Mr. Scanlon is here, and he's worked on the development charges and the community benefits. And I was chair of that task force, and it looks like we're not going to get it to inclusionary zoning, which is our third tool in our toolbox. When I'm out talking to people about affordable housing, that's one of our tools that we have. So the new council will be looking at that. But, that's under the leadership of Director Kitay to bring that to us, and also to the CRCS under the direction of Director Christie. And so thank you to the staff and their staff as well. I don't mean to leave out anybody, but really their staff for bringing that forward to this council, and to thank you to my colleagues and all of us that have worked on these new ideas, because these are revenue tools for the city and are going to help the city grow and get rid of some of the gaps that have just been widening over the last couple of decades. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Littleton. I was going to leave it at that, but Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is appropriate right now. Like, I certainly support the concept of updating and having a new parkland dedication bylaw, but I thought Councillor Williamson in particular and Councillor Kushner raised some interesting questions about information that we should have. And I just wonder if I could refer that to staff to get some more answers and more details before we vote on this.
So I'll look to the clerk.
If a councillor can move a motion to refer, it would not come back until November 7th at the earliest, depending on what the questions are, and it would require a majority vote.
So I think, as mayor, I'll just say that I hope we don't move a referral. I think all the information is here, and let the program move forward. So there's no debate on this, and I'll just ask for a vote. To make sure that we have the right number of votes, I'll ask the clerk to call the question.
A motion to refer, Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
No.
Councillor Littleton?
No.
Councillor Miller?
Pardon me? No.
Councillor Porter?
No.
Councillor Townsend?
No.
Councillor Dodge?
No.
Councillor Kushner?
No.
Councillor McPherson?
No.
Counselor Phillips?
No.
Counselor Sorrento?
Kidding me? No.
Counselor Williamson?
Sorry, Madam Clerk, did you say that it had to be unanimous to refer?
No, it has to be a majority vote.
Oh, okay, thank you. No.
Mayor Sendzik?
No.
And that's lost.
Okay, so now we can move forward. And again, I think Councillor Littleton said it all. Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up what Councillor Littleton said. Obviously, that was very astute. And I would also like to point out, as something I brought up earlier, that some of the reason why we don't get to these things for so long is because our planning department has been understaffed for decades and decades and decades and generations. So hopefully that is something we keep in mind as we keep giving them more and more and more work. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Let's support the awesome work that the staff is doing. So thank you.
Right, and I think, Director Kitte, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at the budget meeting, we approved the hiring of 7 additional because of how understaffed. So I just want to, Director Kitte?
Through the mayor to council, committee of the whole approved to include the 7 positions as part of budget deliberation conversations, but the positions weren't actually created.
Right, so to Councillor Miller's point, that's going to be an interesting budget discussion the next term of council.
Just a point to what Councillor Porter was mentioning, we should buy as much waterfront as we can. However, in Port Dalhousie and in my ward, all along pretty well, there's a strip of parkland in Walker's Brothers behind Butler Crescent in Walker's Creek along. So there is fairly expansive park system that extends along the lakefront.
Right.
It might not be as glamorous as some other parks, but you can go for a really nice walk or bike ride and go from pretty well the end of Vine Street all the way into Port Dalhousie.
Thank you for that plug for Walker's Creek. Appreciate it.
You're going to have lots of time soon to take advantage of that.
Yes, I will. The only other point I would make is that the 200th anniversary of the Welland Canal, the first Welland Canal, is coming up in our community, and to Ms. Knudsen, is this an area where the renovation and rehabilitation of the canal system, would that be an applicable space in which it's 2029, Councillor Littleton, is the 200th anniversary? So, you know, we've got only 5 years to prepare, but is this an area where the Parkland Dedication Fund can play a role?
Yeah, certainly. Any monies that are in our reserve fund can be used for parks improvements. So in the areas all along the canal from the north end to the south, at the bridge and at our Lock 3 Museum, improvements can be made in preparation of 2029.
That's great. Thank you very much for the next term of council. Councillor Littleton, I don't normally allow a second time, so.
Then I'm just wondering, can we put somewhere in that it just be circulated to Kathleen at the museum, or just notified of that task force?
So it's a
That's
direction
all.
to staff?
Yeah, just direction.
Just to notify the task force. Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. The mover of this is Councillor Sorrento, second by Councillor Littleton, and I'll call the question.
Counselor Sorrento?
Yes.
Counselor Littleton?
Yes.
Counselor Dodge?
Yes.
Counselor Garcia?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Counselor Kushner?
Yes.
Counselor McPherson?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Phillips?
Yes.
Counselor Porter?
Yes.
Counselor Townsend?
Yes.
Counselor Williamson?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, so there are no, if there's any notices of motion, please just get them into the clerk. We got some time before the last meeting, so get them into the clerk. And as well, we've got the ABCs. So motion to receive the task force minutes. Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Dodge. And all in favor of receiving the minutes? Show of hands, that's carried. We're going to go into closed session. And the reason for the closed session to the clerk?
We are going in for an update number 2 on municipal transfer agreements related to Niagara Transit Commission in closed session pursuant to Municipal Act Section 2392D, Labor Relations and Employee Negotiations. By attending the closed session, each member acknowledges that their obligations under the Code of Conduct, including responsibilities related to confidentiality of session materials and discussions remain the same as if they were physically present at the meeting. This includes that members are not permitted to record the proceedings and must ensure that no other person can see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place.
Motion to go in camera, Councillor Miller, second by Councillor McPherson. All in favor, show of hands. Okay, so as we prepare to go in camera, the stream will stop. If we can have staff go into the back and council up here, we're going to do a photo with our shirts on. Okay, so we can get all that as we're preparing for in camera. All right, so we're back from in camera. We do have a motion, which is to receive the CAO's report, 160-2022, regarding the MTAs for Niagara Region Transit, moved by Councillor Sorrento, second by Councillor Phillips. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And we now go to the reading of the bylaws as listed A through I on the agenda, that they be signed and executed by the mayor and clerk. And I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Porter, second by Councillor McPherson. All in favor of the bylaws? Okay, any opposed? So the bylaws are carried, and I just want to say to council, we won't be meeting again until Wednesday. So I'll see everybody on Wednesday for a special meeting of council. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. And then the next meeting after that will be after the election. So look forward to everybody seeing everybody on Wednesday. Take care. And motion to adjourn, Councillor Townsend, second by Councillor Miller. All in favor? Carried.